Hello again, my friends. There's a party going on outside. There's crickets. It's night time. Let's begin. Welcome to I Hear Good Things, the podcast. A podcast about music and lawns. I have a new problem with my lawn. If I don't chop it every week, passing cats feel very comfortable doing a big poo in the middle because it's getting so long. It's 24 degrees today. Pretty good. Probably the best thing that's happened to me in the last couple of weeks. I've had a bad time. There's ants in my kitchen. That's for me to deal with. It's not your problem. I've been sick. I got sick and then I got a bit better and then I got sick again. It's lucky I didn't have to record this in the middle because I had a voice that was suitable only for Koyaanisqatsi. Perhaps a deep cut, but I'll put it on the playlist for you. I was supposed to have a special guest for this episode, but my internet screwed up and I had to delay. I couldn't go to Sleepazoid last night. This is the rock bottom episode where your hero is at his lowest point before the triumph of episode 4. Alright, let's talk about some new releases. As always, there'll be a playlist in the show notes. So there's been a couple of Australian releases that have had a bit of buzz overseas. It's always interesting to see what Australian music gets picked up overseas and what doesn't. The two bands I'm talking about are Exek from Melbourne and Station Model Violence from Sydney. This is Exek's 7th album and I've never heard of them before. It's called Prove the Mountains Move, and it's another one of these albums where I don't know what to think of it initially, and then it sort of gnaws at me and I keep coming back to it. It's a little quiet, a little strange. It's sort of in the post-punk realm, but there's some classic Australian indie vibes as well. They have a song called Arrivederci Back Pain, which speaks to me. And Station Model Violence is much more traditional post-punk, I would say, but this is their self-titled debut album, but the members have been in some other bands like Total Control. And I'm not sure about this one. It sounds good. There's some good songs, but it's just a little too close to Joy Division for me to enjoy completely. I challenge you to listen to the first track, Learn to Hate, and not feel like Love Will Tear Us Apart is about to break out. So that mutes my enjoyment of it a bit, but it is very good. One that is very much up my alley is Maya, M-A-Y-A. I feel like she's been around for ages, but this is her debut album, turns out. She's just had long EPs before. This is really high-energy pop-punk, really heavy and fun. I like the songs Claws and Redacted especially. The complete opposite of that, Sylvie Millard from Lismore is a folk singer I've discovered. This is really stretching the definition of new releases. This was from very early January. She released this pair of albums, Law is Story and Story is the Law. I find that in a very genre-fluid age, when you hear music that is purely one thing, it's very refreshing. And this is really traditional folk music, just beautiful voice, guitar, some ambient sounds. She calls them slowly decolonizing white country folk songs. And I need to get into the lyrics a bit more to understand exactly what she means by that. But it's very pure and will definitely take you to a very particular place. In a different kind of folk lane, Alcides Neto is a Brazilian multi-instrumentalist from Melbourne. He's playing a kind of folk/jazz in a Brazilian style. I love a track with a grandma sounding cool in it, so this album grabbed me straight away. And finally, for Australian releases, there were 2 tracks I found on the Unearthed Triple J website. And I'm not a super genius for finding these. They were in the popular tracks list. But 2 artists who've released singles only, Nyasha and Ajoa. I'll put them both on the episode playlist. I thought they were really good. Going overseas, one of the biggest releases was Mitski coming back with an album about cats, which it's a little bit fish in a barrel for Mitski. I imagine Mitski fans and cat fans are the same people by and large. I think try writing something about machine guns next time, Mitski. I think that would be more of a challenge for you. I haven't really taken to this record. Most Mitski albums take me a little while to get into, but This one, I don't feel there's a lot drawing me back in. My glam rock faves, Starbenders, have finally released their album. I feel like this has been coming for at least a year. They keep releasing singles. Hair metal is one of the pillars of my taste. Stripers Against the Law is one of my favourite albums. So whenever a modern band sort of gets that mix right of not too campy hair metal with good songs, I'm here waiting for it. Indie rock continues to be very back. Two really good ones. Victoryland, a New York band with a very New York sound, and Thumper, an Irish band with not an Irish sound, but both of those banger after banger. Blackpink finally released their new EP. This is very strange for Blackpink, I feel. Particularly the song Go is odd to me. Doesn't sound like Blackpink. They're definitely not getting back to the heights of their early EPs, but they're doing something a little different. Smoosh is a band or a person, I'm not sure. Her entire Bandcamp bio is the word sensitive. But she's released a covers EP here. It starts off with the kind of shoegaze that I really like, which is a sound that feels like steel wool scraping the inside of some receptacle. Always makes me think of when you eat pizza and you feel like drinking Coke because you think that will scrape out your insides appropriately. Is that me or everyone? Not sure. My favourite cover here is the Norah Jones cover. Don't know why. I don't think I've heard a Norah Jones cover before, but I like this one very much. And the last one I wanted to call out was Star Moles, which is Emily from Philadelphia. The appeal to me with this one was sort of a combination of sounding very naive, but also very weary. And this is another artist I've never heard of with a large back catalogue, so I've got some work to do there as well. All right, let's talk to a fully qualified carpenter. G'day, Chief. Are you there?
G'day, Bills. I'm here, mate.
Excellent. So you're fully qualified?
Yeah, did my 3 years at TAFE. Yeah, I'm fully qualified.
All right. Chief, I'd like to ask you about music on the worksite. What's the standard practice? Is everyone listening to the same music, or are you individually listening to music? What's happening?
It's a bit of a mix. Yeah, these days, some people there's Bluetooth speakers. Some people have hearing protection with Bluetooth in it, so they've got their own music or just radio.
Is it a faux pas to have your own music?
Yeah, like if you're working with other people, it's probably not a good idea. It's probably good to be able to hear other people to communicate. But yeah, if you're sort of doing your own thing for a while and just zoning out, that's okay.
So is there any music that gets everyone going if it comes on the speakers?
Yeah, it used to be the Friday Arvo DJ set on Triple J. Used to get a bit of a run, but I don't know. Yeah, there's not really a communal song that comes on and everyone drops tools and goes for it.
Well, what I'm going to do is, if anyone has questions for a fully qualified carpenter, I'm going to give you a call back.
Okay, no worries. No, that'd be good.
All right. Thanks, Chief.
Thanks, mate.
So if you have any questions for a fully qualified carpenter, please send them to mail@iheargoodthings.com. You can send anything there, actually. What am I going to do? So I've been at home, sick and sad, and I got back on Instagram. Haven't used it much for the last few years, but it's pretty handy for seeing what's going on in Australian music land, seeing what artists are doing to promote themselves. There's one artist who I think is doing social media really well, and that's Anna Jeevens from Adelaide. She has a song called Woo Me, or I thought it was Woo Me, but I think it's Woo Me as like romance me. But she just has loads of ideas for social media stuff. She's got her parents in the car asking for their opinions on her songs. She's got behind the scenes of music videos. I feel like I'm constantly seeing her stuff, maybe because I keep watching it. But she's got an album coming out in April, and now I want to hear it. There's been some drama, actually, probably a week ago. So if you're fully hooked into Australian music Instagram, this is dry pie for you. But Basically, Spotify paid some Australian music influencers to spruik their new AI playlist feature. And these influencers got absolutely destroyed in the comments, which goes to show how much Spotify is absolute poison to people actually working music. I think this was helped along a lot by Liz Pelly's book last year, Mood Machine, which is an epic takedown of Spotify. You absolutely should read it if you have any interest in the topic. Surprisingly fascinating stuff about the history of streaming music going all the way back to like the 1920s and the Muzak company piping in background music for workers. It also wasn't helped by CEO Daniel Ek investing $1 billion into a German AI military tech company. Do not arm the Germans. Have we learned nothing? And also having ads for ice, not the good kind of ice. I'm still not sure why it is that if I order a latte, it's $6.50, but if I order an iced latte, it's $9.50. There is, of course, the perennial issue of how much they pay artists, but I find this one a bit of a non-starter because how much do you expect them to pay artists for your $17 a month or whatever it is? I have a little stats app thing that says I listen to an average of 91 tracks a day. I use Apple Music, which is supposed to pay artists about 1 cent per stream, so I'm already roiding the system and paying less for it than they're paying out in theory. So Apple's supposed to pay them 1 cent. What do you think they should be paid per stream? 10 cents? For example, that would cost me $273 a month. I'm not made of dollars, and few people are. Of course, the pay per stream is kind of a made-up figure because none of the streaming platforms actually pay per stream. They just put all the money in a big pot and divvy it up, and major labels get more than their fair share because they sign deals early on to make it that way. So streaming is kind of always a bad deal for independent artists, especially. Unless you get really big, you can really only view it as advertising, unfortunately. But Spotify is kind of uniquely evil in this area because they do everything in their power to pay artists less money. I'm not saying Apple as a company doesn't do evil things as well. I looked up China Labour Watch says conditions have worsened or remained unchanged since the scandals at Foxconn many years ago, where they make the iPhones. Samsung production's even worse, chemicals, etc. But if we ignore certain evils and focus on the treatment of artists, artists are the enemy at Spotify. At Apple, their streaming service is just to sell iPhones. They can afford to take a loss on it. But Spotify can't do that, and they create fake artists and they generate slop to fill their playlists with so that real artists won't get paid. They get less of a pie piece because they pay out to the slop instead. The service a lot of music people are switching to is Qobuz. They pay around 1.8 cents per stream, about 6 times what Spotify pays and almost double what Apple Music pays. I would go there, but frankly, you'll pry Apple Music from my cold dead, etc. I've been working on my library for decades at this point. I need to be able to upload my own files that I bought from Bandcamp and so on. And again, only Apple can offer that service because it's a loss leader for their phones. But anyway, it's interesting to see this huge pile-on that these music influencers got from accepting this blood money. Hundreds of angry comments. I didn't know either of them from Adam before this actually, but one is X-Triple-J, and they were both women, which you can never ignore as a factor in these pile-ons. Ironically, the feature they were promoting, I think, is actually pretty useful, and I don't think it's harmful to artists on the face of it. It's basically you ask it to create a playlist with really specific prompts like beach vibes in Melbourne, but I'm sad and hungry. People hated this partly because AI is involved, which I can understand, but I think this is pretty benign use of AI as far as it goes. Spotify has been known to offer to pay you less to give you more exposure and things like this, so I'm sure they can find a way to make this evil. I'm sure they'll fill it with their Muzak crap. But the feature itself, it's probably useful if you just want to call up a vibe quickly. Anyway, I'm not getting paid. Why am I talking about this? Apple's about to release this as well, apparently, and I'm sure everyone else will. But my overall take on streaming, from my perspective, it's the greatest thing to happen in the history of the world. It allows me to check out thousands of artists I never would have heard otherwise, and then I can buy the ones I like on Bandcamp, I can go to shows, I can support them on Patreon. There's lots of ways to get them money. But yeah, probably get off Spotify. They are the devil. It's time for Watch, where I talk about things that I watched. And this one's a bit of a movie hour. I've watched Barabbas. You may remember Barabbas as the guy who got let go instead of Jesus when they said, "Hey, do you want Jesus or Barabbas?" And they said Barabbas. And as the movie poster says, this begins where the other big ones leave off. Because who among us has not wondered what happened to Barabbas after that? Well, I can tell you he went home and he was pretty happy to see everyone. He seems to live in the kind of, in the 1966 Batman movie where the villains live on top of a bar for fishermen. It's that kind of vibe at Barabbas's house. There's all these people hanging around downstairs, carousing, being naughty people. Because, Barabbas was a criminal and these are all his criminal buddies and they're loose women. But terrible news for Barabbas. His special lady, Rachel, has become a follower of Jesus. The one who he just, what's the opposite of replaced? Jesus replaced him. So she's not that happy to see Barabbas, and Barabbas is not happy about that. I guess this contains spoilers for Barabbas, the 1961 movie. So Barabbas is upset. He goes to watch the crucifixion because he's all annoyed about it now. And the eclipse happens and he freaks out. Apparently this was a real eclipse that they filmed this in, so points for that. So then he watches them put Jesus in the tomb and they seal it up. And then Rachel tells him, no, he's coming back. And so he goes back on the third day. He's like, what day is this? Like Scrooge. And then he goes back to the tomb and it's empty. So he goes and knocks on the apostles' door, and they similarly live in this kind of sad bar, but like there's no bar there. It's just men hanging around, sadly. And he argues with them about it. And from there, it's kind of the hapless journey of Barabbas. He has a real bad time. He ends up getting enslaved for 20 years in the sulfur mines. Then the sulfur mines explode and he survives. Oh yeah, and I forgot to mention, before the mines, he had returned to his old ways and did a robbery. But then he finds out they can't execute him because he's already been pardoned before with the whole Jesus thing. So that's why he ends up in the mines instead. But now he's kind of realized, I can't be killed. I'm sort of a magic person now. It's a bit like the movie Double Jeopardy. But anyway, he has a bad time and eventually becomes a gladiator. Can't remember how he got there. And when they say bigger than Ben-Hur, this is not what they're talking about. This is smaller than Ben-Hur. Ben-Hur came out like 2 years before this, but it's still pretty good. They have a big Colosseum thing they've built where he does all the gladiator stuff. There's other stuff that happens, but yeah. If you ever wondered what happened to Barabbas, there's 137 minutes of it. He's played by Anthony Quinn, famous for acting. The other movie I watched, Friends, I've been punked. I watched the Rolling Thunder review film by Martin Scorsese about Bob Dylan. And you expect to be punked by Bob Dylan, but et tu, Martin Scorsese? So it's ostensibly a documentary about the Rolling Thunder tour, which happened across 1975, 76, which is the end of Bob Dylan's good period. The album before this tour was Desire, my favourite Bob Dylan album. And they play a lot of crazy coke-eyed versions of these songs. And again, spoilers for Rolling Thunder review, a Bob Dylan story by Martin Scorsese. I'll give you some chapter markers so you know where to go if you don't want to hear this. But they introduced this guy, Stefan Van Dorp, who says that he filmed the material for this tour. And friends, this is lies. Stefan Van Dorp is a made-up person. They also interview Sharon Stone, who says she was at the concert with her mum. But they're laughing at us all. Sharon Stone was not there with her mum, and Stefan Van Dorp is just an angry German man they invented. And I wasn't a real head enough to understand this. But nevertheless, this is a very good movie. I've awarded it 4.5 stars on Letterboxd. The concert footage is just so good. It's real hard-rocking versions of, as I said, my favourite Bob Dylan album. There's Patti Smith being weird, trying to get people excited about a poem. There's modern-day Bob Dylan as a talking head, but don't listen to him. He's telling lies at the beginning. I should have learned from this. He says, when someone's wearing a mask, he's going to tell you the truth. When he is not, it's highly unlikely. So, great film. Lots of Allen Ginsberg as well. He does a good bit at the end about how you should do art. So, That's good. And that really got me in the mood for more Bob Dylan content. So last night I watched Don't Look Back, which doesn't have an apostrophe in it. And this is another documentary, not really documentary, about Bob Dylan's tour of England in the mid-60s. Google's overview of this movie says it's a documentary / thriller. But the basic story here, he turns up to England fairly positive, and people just ask him stupid questions, and he gets angrier and angrier until he completely loses it at a Time magazine journalist at the end. So I found this a tough watch. It's obviously really iconic footage. It's the part of his life that Kate Blanchett plays in I'm Not There. He's 23 years old. He's a rock star. He's getting harassed from all sides. He's angry. He's sick of it. The longest scene is his manager haggling with the BBC over many phone calls about how much they're going to pay him for his appearance. So from the fly on the wall perspective, it's kind of amazing. You get to see some of this stuff. And in that sense, it's like the Get Back documentary of the Beatles, but the difference is the Beatles are fun guys. I don't think anyone could accuse Bob Dylan of being a fun guy, especially in this period. So in my ranking system, based on enjoyment, this is a 3 stars out of 5 for me. Well, I'm sitting on my back step. The party's over. I'm watching to see if a cat will do a big poo. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I'll see you next time. And I'm Ben. Ben!